What's up, Instagram? It's Wednesday. I'm wearing a lot of red tonight. Just threw on the old school Reds cap from the Big Red Machine days of the 1970s, along with my USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. That is my unwarmed up Herbert voice singing some lyrics of a country song that Kirker Butler put into a Family Guy script a while back. And yeah, I am hanging out. It is 8 o'clock on the East Coast, and I have a great guest tonight, a very long time, very good dear friend of mine, Kara Vallow. She is the executive producer of Family Guy on the production side of things. She's not a writer, she's a producer. She makes the show happen. So she'll be joining me in just a couple minutes. And want to thank the folks I've had on so far this week. On Monday, Todd Frazier, awesome Major League Baseball player, awesome guy. And then last night, Reagan Gomez, who is a sweetheart and a wonderful actress who has taken charge of her career by not just acting, but writing, directing, and producing her own stuff, which is pretty cool. So, hey, Kirsten Hauser, how's LA? I hope it's going well. A Virginia native. I don't know if you're out there or back here, but I hope you're well. And Kirk Schroeder, what's up, my man? Vegan of maybe 20 years. He does not like the meat, and that's a good thing. I don't eat very much meat, but Kirk eats no meat and runs marathons and stuff. He's a cool dude. So I hear Herbert, can I have a popsicle? You betcha. Come on now. And I won't forget the man who died, who gave that right to me. All right. I see Kara wants to join. So I'm going to go live with Kara Vallow here. And we're about life and probably some 70s sports and probably producing shows and how awesome it is. What's up, Kara?
Hey, I can't believe you're wearing your Cincinnati Reds gear.
I wore it just for
Just to
you.
piss me off.
Yep, I wore it for you. Big Phillies fan, Kara Vallow is. Are you a Dodgers fan too now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Phillies in your heart.
Yeah, Phillies unless the Phillies blow it, and then, I have to have something.
So if it's Dodgers, Phillies, you're rooting for the Phillies?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
God, yeah. It's such a cruel twist of biology that the social distancing required in response to this is robbed us of baseball, of all things.
I know.
Baseball. It's like the first summer since I was 9 that I haven't watched every game.
I know. I love baseball. A very good friend of mine, Danny Capraletti, who lives here in Richmond, got up at 5:30 this morning to watch Korean baseball.
Oh, yeah, they're playing baseball in Korea.
Yeah, they're playing in empty stadiums, basically, with cutout fans. So, some of them. They filled some of the seats with actual cutouts.
Yeah, that's great. We can't do the empty stands here thing because it's just like too sad.
It's weird.
It's just weird. I just can't. I mean, I think you and I kind of bonded over baseball. I remember hearing you in Seth's office for some reason bring up Bake McBride. And I remember sticking my head in and like, Bake McBride?
Yeah.
And you gave me a trading card that I still have.
I've got them all upstairs. I almost brought some of my baseball cards downstairs to reminisce with you, but I didn't. So Bake McBride was an outfielder for the Philadelphia Phillies in the 70s, and he had a big fro and very kind of Chinese-ish eyes, if I may say. That's what we used to call him because he was baked.
They called him Shake and Bake.
That's right. So forgive me for the Chinese eyes comment, but was the 70s, and that's what we would say because we didn't know.
Exactly. No, we would have said Oriental eyes.
Yes, or just stoned guy eyes.
Yeah, right.
That would normally be wider, but love the Phillies.
She had one really good season in 1977 or something.
Okay.
So he batted 350 and.
All right.
Yeah, and then I think then that the manager, what's his name, Danny Ozark, instituted that platoon system that ruined his career.
Okay, yeah. So he only played against lefties or something.
Yeah, well, he came out very rarely, but it's funny how I mean, I'm sure you do too. Remember the entire Phillies lineup from the entire 70s. Like I can
Sure.
rattle them. I don't know the lineup for the Philly season going forward,
Right.
but
Right. Well, since we're on the subject, and all the animation people who tuned in are going, "What the fuck are they talking about?" I got to show you this, which I showed Todd Frazier the other night. This is my man cave workout
I
room
saw that. Oh my
with
God, you have Jose Concepcion.
Davey Concepcion.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah, so I got all that, and I know you love these guys.
Yeah, I still don't get that, but
You know what? There were three things: Drew Pearson, Roger Staubach, and the cheerleaders in
yeah,
the 70s.
the
Which
cheerleaders were really something.
they were a force. I had
Yeah,
posters. It was ridiculous. But
yeah. But the Reds should be good this year, right? Didn't they spend a shit ton of money
yeah,
on acquisitions?
they were poised. They were poised. But that's just our luck. You know, that's the way it goes.
Yeah, I think
But
the Phillies did too. They
well,
spent a lot of money in acquisitions and they suck.
well, do you think we've lost all the animation people so far? Well,
Oh,
what the heck?
everyone loves baseball.
Yes, you have to love baseball, and except for the Astros now, which I was glad to hear Todd Frazier was pissed about that because
Oh
he was
yeah, that was good.
yeah, he was on the
Yeah,
Yankees who lost to the
yeah,
Astros as
that was a
a
good
possible
interview.
result. He's
Yeah,
a great guy. He's a
yeah.
great guy.
Well, I love
Um,
that you somehow, and primarily during the production of the Cleveland show, just like you're someone that goes to a game and just meets players somehow. Like I would never be able to do that.
yeah,
And then like the just bringing I've been working on Family Guy for so long, and actors and celebrities would waltz on in. I would never even leave my office for them.
right.
It's only like sports
Yeah.
stars, and I remember when we were doing one table read, and it included some baseball players. I think Joey Votto, some of your favorite baseball players.
Hmm.
And I remember sitting in there steaming because like at least you could have stuck a Philly in there.
We did. We had
No, we
Jimmy.
did, but it wasn't in the original script. And I remember
Wait,
going into your office. I'm like, yes. And then you
you know,
wrote in Brian Howard, and then which became Jimmy Rollins, right?
yes, yes. And
Yeah,
Jimmy Rollins was super nice and had the
yeah.
biggest watch I've ever seen.
He had a huge
Um,
watch. Yeah,
yeah, so a
yeah,
small man's watch,
yeah.
but
Definitely.
yeah, no, he was a great guy. I loved meeting him, and
Yeah,
that was the really cool thing about the Cleveland show is I could just go for my heroes. I had David
yep,
Lynch and Johnny Bench and
yeah,
Earth, Wind and Fire and all these people that I grew
yeah.
up really admiring. And
And
but
it was a limited series, eventually, and just you really were living that dream and have that experience, and that was good.
it was
And we
great.
remember we had all those basketball players too.
Oh
That
yeah,
one
with
episode.
LeBron, Shaq, Kevin Garnett, Steve Nash,
uh
Dirk Nowitzki.
As a producer, it's extremely difficult to work.
Yeah.
They weren't the most emotive actors.
No. Yeah, but you take what you get.
Yes, it's LeBron.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
But so it sounds like you've caught some of these, but I've just been talking about anything that's not in the news, and that is what's like inside people that it drives them. And this whole lockdown just really got me thinking about what you kind of run out of stuff to do, and you start thinking, and it's like, what can I do to put out there? And let me just talk to some of my friends, and we'll talk about how we've followed our passion. And so that's really kind of
Well,
what
I
I've been
love that
doing.
you're doing this. You're doing something. I love that you're doing this, and also like Alex Sulkin's
Oh yeah.
Instagram. I mean,
So
it's just
fun.
like Yeah, they make me happy, and I'm not really very happy right now.
Yeah.
And it's how's everything going in Virginia? Do you
Um,
have like
Virginia's good. I think most people are, committed to the lockdown that's been set. And the fortunate thing here is it's a smallish town, so there's a lot of there. It's not too dense with people, so we can get out and comfortably go for walks and not
right.
worry too much about there aren't that many people in the street where we live. So
Right.
at least we can do that. And then it's a couple grocery runs here and there. And, but the thing is, I mean, even for us, where, our shows are continuing to move forward, it's still, I'm still going a little crazy. And I hate to say that because I look at the news and I see what real suffering is happening.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I just think it's human nature where we're all just kind of in a big transition mode or a big,
yeah, it is.
What are we doing mode?
It's really awkward and it's hard, it's hard. First of all, managing the shows without the office is really difficult.
Yeah.
It was very difficult to get everyone set up, as you can imagine.
I'll bet.
I assumed there were things that we just wouldn't be able to set up. And, but that wasn't the case. The technology has moved so far that we are basically producing every aspect of the show.
Yeah.
Alex Borstein was the most difficult thing because she lives in Spain and it was almost impossible to set her up with a record situation there.
Did they have to send her a microphone or something, or?
We had to actually send her this crazy booth that looks like a big potato made of aluminum foil. Hopefully she'll post a picture of it because it's insane. It's like aluminum coffin,
right?
And that she has to go in, but she doesn't have a computer. So
she what?
She doesn't have a computer. So trying to get her even a computer there was exceedingly difficult. We had to pay a metric ton of money to get a computer sent there directly from the manufacturer. I know.
Who doesn't have a computer? I mean,
well, when you interview her, you can talk to her about it. I don't know. But she's allowed to do whatever she wants. She's a queen.
Sure. Yeah, I love Alex.
Did they have those pro-infection rallies there in Virginia?
A little bit, yeah. Not pro-infection, but let's get back to work. It's just
with guns.
Yeah. We live in the state where Thomas Jefferson, who is our founding father, had sex with his slave when she was 14. So anyway, that's as much politics as we should go. But so Kara, you grew up in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And did you love animation when you were little, or talk a little bit about your passion for what you're doing now? How did you get here?
Well, I did love animation as a little kid. I guess I loved the idea that you could create a story and words. I loved to read and to write stories, and I love to draw. So you could take stories and words and actually bring them to life. It seemed like a sort of omnipotence that you could have control over something like that and actually make things move. Like the ability to create a completely alternative reality.
Yeah.
I think we did those flip books in elementary school, and that was and that prompted a lot of that. I thought I loved regular cartoons on TV, but there was also a way to explain whatever your mind could conceive. Mm-hmm. That was sort of it was more versatile than just writing or just doing art. And you sort of had this control over an entire universe. And it was it seemed like a more versatile means of communication. And my grandfather, who was German, loved animation. And so we talked about it a lot, and he had reels and reels of 8mm or whatever, cartoons that we would watch.
What kind? Were they German cartoons, and what cartoons did you like?
Just regular
cartoons. What did you like? What did you like? Scooby-Doo? What did you?
I loved Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
I'm very into the cartoon detective genre, or the detective genre in general. I loved the Flintstones. I didn't like the kind of nonsensical, violent ones, like the Itchy and Scratchy predecessors. I
Yeah.
liked the ones that had more stories, so that's why I liked Scooby-Doo and the Flintstones.
Hong Kong Phooey. Did you like Hong Kong Phooey?
I did. I enjoyed
it. Was fine.
It's pretty funny, yeah.
If you look back at some of those, the animation was not the most detailed on some of this. Yeah.
Absolutely outrageous.
Um,
Even for the time.
So were your friends into that stuff? So you like sports and you like cartoons? Was that your thing?
I had a lot of things, Mike.
Yeah,
I was into a lot of things.
I love it when you post old pictures of yourself and all the things that you were into.
Yeah, I did. Did competitive figure skating when I was like 7 and 8, which I hated. So I wasn't very good at it, and if I wasn't, I was very competitive, and if I wasn't good at something, I didn't want to do it. So it's kind of it's kind of intense as a kid, a little obnoxious. I didn't handle losing in a healthy way.
Well, you were from Philadelphia.
I'm from Philadelphia.
Right.
Yeah. I was one of them.
Right.
Bitter jerk, inflicting my emotional rage on everyone else. I played Little League. I had an activity every day after work. After school, I did ballet and the figure skating, and but what I really loved most of all was I really just loved to read. I liked, academic things. I just did a ton of stuff, sort of psychotic.
Mm-hmm.
All the stuff I was forced to do.
So you like getting lost in the stories, basically, which sounds it might have led to the fantasy world of animation.
Yeah, I feel like I was talking to my sister about this recently, like in the 70s and 80s, there were a finite number of books for kids. And I think I read all of them. Like I read every book I went to a very small school, in my school library and the public library. Like it wasn't like now where there are tons of books and book series. Like I had to read the Little House on the Prairie books over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Like my mom or my dad would tell my mom, she's reading them again.
Right.
Like there weren't that many, that era, there wasn't even that much to do. Like Philadelphia is a delightful city now, but back then it was like kind of a shithole. there was nothing going on. Like sports was the salve for the masses then. We didn't have like restaurants, and it hadn't created its identity yet. Right. It's like a colonial East Coast city.
Yeah. You had the Bell.
We had the Bell, but people were like,
I'm kidding,
angry, and sports fans were, they were bad. It was like, I didn't realize until I went, just going back to baseball for a second, until I went to the new stadium, 10 years ago, whatever it was, and everyone was happy in Phillies uniforms, like in Phillies costumes, like it was the stadium that created this atmosphere of hostility and like violence.
Yeah, the vet. They had a jail cell in the stadium at the Phillies Eagles.
Because stadium. it would almost like elicited anger, and it was, I don't know, it was one of those cavernous cement hulks from the 70s. It was like a urine and vomit, Hulk, and it was a disaster. Like, yeah. So I really, you always respected me even as a Phillies fan, and never played the booing Santa Claus card, which is like the Mendoza curve, right. Poor fan behavior, and I appreciate that. But they booed like everybody. They booed like Mike Schmidt, like they booed their stars. It was off. And I was there a lot. Like,
why was everybody so angry?
My theory, it was that stadium.
Yeah,
it created a depression.
I was on the field once. My brother and I, Patrick and I, shot a video at a bunch of stadiums, and that field, the stadium turf, it was on concrete. It was like a carpet on concrete. And then the seams around where the bases were when they converted it to the football stadium had huge gaps in them. And I mean, I can't imagine even like falling down on that field, much less getting tackled.
It caused a lot of football injuries because it was one of those really crappy multi-use stadiums, like that was supposed to be state of the art. It was like a total piece of shit. And those seams, like that AstroTurf and those seams became infamous because they created like career-ending injuries.
Yeah, for their stars.
And that was like through like the 80s.
Right.
They just refused to change it.
Yeah, they had. I guess it was Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Cincinnati, Montreal. All had similar. Theirs was an Olympic stadium, but the others were all. It was all a big circle with a rug on some turf.
Exactly.
On the ground.
It was a circle that had no visibility, to the field, with a translucent green carpet on top.
Right.
Yeah.
So all the animation people are going, what the fuck? So I'm talking with Kara Vallow, executive producer of Family Guy, American Dad, and Cosmos. And so talk to me about, when you got out of high school, where'd you go? And what were you thinking?
I was thinking I got to get out, Philadelphia. I was a little young. I was a little immature, a little young. I think I was 6, not 17 yet. And it just felt like I must go to New York City. Like that was where I needed to go. So I went to art school in New York, and I studied animation and fine art. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was inspired to animation by a teacher there who taught a history of animation class. And so when I got out of school,
what school?
School of Visual Arts.
Okay.
I did decide that, and another thing, like I was a pretty good artist, but I went to a very small school, like a small high school, and I didn't have much competition. So I thought I was pretty good. When I went to art school, people were like Picasso. And I quickly realized like I really kind of sucked. And I finished out, and then I got I had a bunch of crappy jobs, whatever, but my first job in animation was at like a commercial animation studio then called Broadcast Arts. And there I realized that
where?
It was in New York on New York. Bowery.
Now tell me, before we get out of your own art, what kinds of things did you were an you studied animation. What types of animations did you do?
Remedial ones, all hand drawn. There was
what was the story? Was it a girl power thing, or was it a detective thing, or was it people in space, or like what was it?
I did no, it was neither of those things. It was more sort of an abstract thing. Oh, I did one that was based on a Greek play. The hell was it? Pygmalion. It was an Ovid play where the man falls in love with a statue, whatever. And I did an animated short to that. It wasn't great.
Well, some people in here are saying they were great. That's what I'm seeing comments fly by that said ask you to, because they're great. Everyone's their own harshest critic.
I can be pretty honest about myself. About my shortcomings.
All right. So you felt like you just kind of lost your passion for creating for drawing and creating it yourself.
I didn't really. I just became kind of a little bit the air was left on my tires a little bit, but I still wanted to do it. I'm very competitive, and I didn't like doing something that I wasn't the best at. But I got a job as an assistant at an animation studio, and I realized that that men were the animators and the artists, and the women were the producers. And but I worked in development there for a couple years, and at some point decided to pack up and move to Los Angeles because I thought I'd have more opportunities there. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any contacts.
So a lot of what I like to talk about or focus on is those kind of not breaking points, those turning points. So so you were at a point, you were living in New York, you had kind of shifted a little bit of your role or the way that you were approaching animation, and that you were producing and developing things. And then I'm assuming you were like in your early mid-20s, and you just said, I want to go where more of this is.
Yeah, there were, in New York at the time, the place I worked was the biggest animation studio in town. But they all just did primarily commercials. And there really wasn't any series work going on. There was all in Los Angeles. And I co-produced a pilot for NBC while I was at Broadcast Arts. It was literally called the Jackie Bison Show, and it was a bison who had a talk show, and a lizard was his like sidekick, and it was stupid.
Was it Saturday morning?
No,
everything was Saturday.
It was prime time, and we pitched it to Brandon Tartikoff, like in the office. It did, but we did. I went to LA to do post on it, and I'd only been there once before, and it just seemed so alien to me. Like when you come from the East Coast in a city like Philadelphia, you go to LA and it's like, it seems crazy, especially then, like the palm tree, like it just, the environment, the physical environment, it just seemed so bizarre.
Did you like it?
I didn't like it, and I didn't like it for a long time because it just did seem weird. I mean, like you're living in Virginia because it seems normal, right?
Sure, and family reasons.
Yeah, well, yes, and family reasons. But for years and years, I thought, like any day, I was going to move back to New York.
Right.
But when I got to LA, LA was just starting to gear up for animation. Like I worked at a bunch of small studios there. I produced the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at a sort of independent studio, but some of the studios, the main like studios were thinking about creating their own animation divisions, which had never happened before. So and I had experience from New York, and I didn't know anybody, so I temped for almost 2 years. And then I read in the trades one day, I was working at like a mortgage banker place, whatever, as a receptionist, that Paramount was opening their own animation division. So I applied there and immediately got a job because I had worked in it before and because I understood the medium. I worked as a production manager on a movie called Bebe's Kids. And then...
Kara, talk about animation back then. How was it physically done?
Well, the aspect that's the same is it's all hand-drawn. It's still all hand-drawn. But we used film. It was before digital was a thing. So we shot it on film and, queued up the reels and I would cut the actual frames in the office. And the cells were painted. I mean, that went on for a while. It wasn't digital technology. How
many frames per second was it then?
24.
Okay. So you would, all right, keep going.
We would get the audio track and we'd get the film back from an overseas studio, and and I would literally edit it on a giant editing machine. So I really learned uh, not that it's that transferable today.
Right.
Like when all of a sudden it changed, it was, it didn't matter that I did that, but it
Yeah,
was,
it does.
Was
it a steam? I mean, was it just were you taping frames together? I mean, was it
yes.
like, okay.
Yes.
Because Patrick, my brother, went to RISD, as you know, with Seth, and he, they were working on a Steenbeck, an old machine, literally cutting film and splicing it together
Seth
and
did
taping
it too. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's great value in understanding that, I think.
Certainly. Yeah.
So then you were, this was at Paramount?
It was a studio called Hyperion, which was the division of Paramount's animation.
Okay.
Division. It was a sort of small studio in Glendale.
And tell me where you were in your life. Did you have roommates, or did you how did you physically, when you moved out, did you have a place lined up, or did you?
I had a friend, my friend John, who I knew from New York. He went to school with my sister at Columbia, and he had a apartment in Hollywood, and he wanted to spend the summer in New York. So I rented it from him, and he let me use his Jeep, and and I mean,
Cool.
I temped for a long time, but it was different. Like rents were super cheap back then. As rents were super cheap in New York when I was living there too.
Right.
The apartments were super shitty, but my apartment was like $500 a month, which was, it was still difficult to live, but it was, you could do it. Like, I could get doable with a part-time job and do it.
Yeah. So I'm talking with Kara Vallow, executive producer of Family Guy, American Dad, and Cosmos, about her journey from Philadelphia to New York to LA and working in animation. So then when did you work with Seth at Hanna-Barbera? Is that how you guys met?
Yeah, we both started there around the same time. I think it was 1997. He was like 23. I was like 30, I guess. We bonded over just both being workaholics and not really having like a manageable personal life. He had just moved there and was young and was inexperienced, and I was going through like a bad like breakup, and so we spent a lot of time together, and we were both in this weird headspace where we would come into work super early and stay super late because we just couldn't stand being at home. And it was really fun. Like that was an amazing place to work. It was sort of the last gasp of the old Hollywood studio.
Yeah.
It was in the old Hanna-Barbera building, and that's basically where TV animation was.
Where was that building? Was that on Ventura?
It was on Cahuenga, yeah.
Where was it? I'm sorry.
It was on Cahuenga.
Yeah. Okay. I remember going to visit Seth because I'd met him.
He lived right up the street.
Yeah. Okay. I remember Seth is a notorious germaphobe. I remember that he had a sleeve of mini donuts, and someone had taken one and eaten it while he was showing me around, and he came back and he just threw the rest of them away because someone else had touched it. Even though there were like three more that no way they could have been touched. But that's
he had a lot of quirks.
Yes.
Then.
Yeah.
He wouldn't drive on the freeway. I always had to drive when we had to go on the freeway.
Yeah. Well, his car drives him now, or his driver, either one.
Yeah.
So what did you do at Hanna-Barbera? And it sounds, again, I mean, not to be analyzing you, but you like to escape in the books, you like to escape in the animation, and you like to kind of escape in Hanna-Barbera in this world where you were working. It sounds
What does that
cool.
say about me?
No, I think it sounds cool. I think it sounds like you found something that you love and something that you just don't want to I don't think you're, I shouldn't say you're escaping. You just love imagining. You love playland.
Yeah, I mean, I always really loved the medium of animation. Never have I once been interested in doing any live action television or parlaying it into, you know, anything that doesn't involve animation. I like the art of it, and I like, you know, as I said, I like the being able to create an entire thing without interference. I like the fact that, you know, even at the studio, I really never got interference because I didn't want to ever fucking understand it.
Yeah.
So, you know,
nothing like doing
so
the work.
Complicated.
Yeah. Nothing like doing the work to have the upper hand of actually understanding the work.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, that was it was very important when we came back, because you remember working in the old days, right?
Sure.
Back at the Dazoo building.
The Dazoo building across from Gelson's on Laurel Canyon.
Yeah.
I heard it's a storage place now.
Is it really? Sad.
I think that's what somebody said.
We had some good times there.
God, yes.
That was a whole different thing.
Yeah.
We used to go to Seth's house at lunch and just jump in the pool. And
did you? I never did.
I think it was the women in the office and Seth.
Oh, well.
I know.
There you go. Good to be the boss, I guess. I don't know.
It was fun, though, because it was a small group. And
talk to me about as working as a woman. I mean, talk to me about the obstacles that you faced because of that. And, you know, you've overcome a lot, but I'm sure there's still a lot of BS that you deal with. So if you want to talk about it, you don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, it could go on. That could go on forever. I'm actually working on a book right now. It's a sort of a memoir about being a feminist in the world of TV, comedy, how working in the television comedy business can often be a very frustrating and alienating experience, especially when we started up again. And I was much more involved because I was sort of instructed to build this whole operation to produce those.
And this was when Family Guy had been canceled for poor ratings due to being moved all around the schedule, and then the ratings on late night and DVDs brought us back. So then you were tasked with.
Yeah, I was just called. I was working on a show called Drawn Together at Comedy Central, and I just got a call from someone at Fox that just said, don't sign a contract over there because we think we might be bringing the show back. And this was, I was aware that Cartoon Network had already wanted to start producing the show. It wasn't Fox's bright idea. Mike Lazo, who I knew from working at Cartoon Network, saw the value in it because he's smart, and saw the numbers it was getting on DVD sales, and reached out to Fox about buying the show and producing new episodes. And then Fox was like, whoa,
right.
What can we do to get this show back? Yeah, and then everything was different. I mean, before the cancellation, I mean, Seth and I both, wasn't just me, were treated like garbage.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah. Hollywood.
And the show cost like 3 cents to make. But then, you know, you were around when we came back. We were like rock stars.
When we did the Montreal Comedy Festival, it was the greatest. It was like a rocket being shot. I mean, it was something else. And then we moved into the very nice offices where we are now. And with an order of 35 episodes, which is pretty unheard of, you know, basically a season and then most of another season. So you were, I mean, I can't imagine having your job. I mean, you literally, you are putting together the entire operation and making sure that, you know, you're the Tom Landry of it. Like you're overseeing all the other.
Yeah, I mean, it basically was a call, figure it out. Figure out where the offices are going to be, figure out how you're going to build a machine to produce 2 shows that needed, you know, incredible number of artists and personnel and artists, you know, the right kind of artists and the people that had worked in primetime shows were pretty hard to come by. But in a way, it was such an amazing opportunity because it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like Dazoo. We suddenly had capital, and Seth had a huge amount of capital, and we had a lot of the studio would just sort of open their pocketbooks for the first time ever. They just wanted these shows on. They wanted a shit ton of shows, and they wanted them on as fast as possible. And it was, you know, it was such an amazing opportunity to be able to do that because I had no oversight, and I was able to staff who I wanted to staff. I didn't have to have any assholes in there. I got to build it exactly how I knew it would work for what Seth wanted, without any interference or anyone telling me it was the wrong way and trying to like insert their bullshit, like
with their fingerprint
way of doing things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was 7 days a week, you know, 12 hours a day. But at that point, I just thrived on it. I mean, it was really hard and really, really stressful, like, especially trying to recruit the artists I wanted. I mean, I did some underhanded things. I stole people from The Simpsons. I lost friends over, but I had to do it. I did whatever it took.
You're from Philly. You're a sports person. Yeah.
I wanted, like, you know, Seth was at the time very demanding. You know, I knew exactly what he wanted, and it's not easy. You know, you know what he was like. He's got like
the bar is high.
The bar is high. Every panel and every note of music was being dissected. But I worked with him long enough that I knew him really well. We were really close at that time. Like, I knew what it was going to take to do it. You know, and then American Dad was like creating a show from scratch. I mean, when we got canceled after season 3, it was only 13 episodes, and I usually like archive a show in case something happens in the future. I remember asking someone at the studio, well, what is your process for archiving? How would you like me to box them up? And I was told, don't bother. Fox is never going to be in the business of television animation again. Yeah. And I kind of thought I just couldn't not do it. So I just took you know, 13 boxes and archived the model packs and stuff in there, the tapes. And Seth took half of them and I took half of them, put them in our garages. And when we started up again, it was literally the only thing we had. Because we didn't have like computer databases of anything. So, you know.
Right. That's amazing. So that was incredibly instinctive and great foresight and good intuition. And, you know, what I'm hearing, you know, and what dawned on me is when you were talking about Seth, every frame, every panel, every note of music, the guy works tirelessly. He's a tireless perfectionist, and you are too, to get it running the way it needs to be run. And I think hard work is, you know, there's themes in these little interviews that I'm doing, and hard work is just, you can't do anything without it. Reagan last night was talking about her acting, and it was very rewarding having a series and then, you know, all this other stuff, but she felt like her voice wasn't being heard. So she figured out a way to write and direct and produce her own stuff. And
she's another one. She's amazing. She just took it on all herself.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, I mean, it's the hard work. It's the hard work and trusting yourself. I mean, did you ever consider doing anything else with your life or with your career?
Well, yeah. I mean, I thought about being an artist until like that didn't really pan out, and I went to like through the the producing route. I also would have loved to be, if the political landscape were completely different, I would have, I think, maybe gone into politics. And I also would have wanted to be a writer, not a TV writer, but a novel writer.
Right.
But
well, you said you're writing a memoir, so you're writing.
I'm doing that, yeah. And that's about sort of what you talked about. I mean, it's a little bit better now, but you wouldn't even believe the shit I went through when we came back to Fox, and the things that were said to me. Like, you know, I'm writing in a book that will come out after I'm finished there, but you know, it's if there's one, I mean, I guess if there's a thing I regret about my career, and this is just because this is the way it was, and still is to some degree, but is to constantly at almost all my jobs be in the role of someone who facilitates, a man's creativity or genius. Because now I feel like, I'm just like smart. I don't. It's kind of. It does cause me regret, and it's a little demeaning. Like, it's still, or it really has been, a boys' club, which is a term I hate, but where women's contributions and their presence aren't really welcome. And, the creativity, the writers and artists in other forms, not so much in animation, but are stereotypically kind of masculine traits, independence and daring, and the feminine traits like I'm good with numbers and I'm really organized, and more value is placed on creativity at work. It just is. Yeah. And the showrunners and the writers are the valued ones. The producers, the production people, we've been told over and over again, we are disposable. And just the meaning, I know we're supposed to be better at this, but meaningful gender equity really is only going to come about when more men try to act against it, and the sort of unrelenting dynamics that ensure male dominance. And it's amazing how much that's still the narrative. And I don't think that male dominance will decline until there's like a different distribution of the industry's finite resources, like one that's based on reducing the number of men rather than using equity measures to just add a few women onto the staff. I mean, it's changing the narratives that we tell ourselves about it. Right. And that's one of the things I want to say in my book. It's not a coincidence that women fare worse in the traditionally male identified roles. Like when you picture a director or a writer or a cinematographer in a movie, you basically picture a white male.
Well, that's the narrative that we know,
right.
Like you just said. It's I say it all the time, just having grown up a white heterosexual male, there's just so much I've always taken for granted until you stop and you listen and you empathize. And, so I don't know what to say other than I truly admire what you've done, and a lot of people on the show have done, a lot of other women that I know. And, I mean, you're kind of the head cheese on, not the head cheese, but you're the big cheese on three big shows. So, I mean, you've got to feel good about that,
I do. I mean, I feel good about, having built an amazing staff, and, I feel like, I guess, what I had to do, as a woman, I think men are reared from childhood to, make their passion their career. And, if they don't have like a calling towards like their passion, they're kind of taught by their parents, their mothers, whatever, not to yield, into that, and that they can do anything. And women aren't raised that way. I mean, I don't know if it's different now. I wasn't raised that way, but women are taught that we have to support ourselves without being reliant on a man. So our instinct isn't going to be, I'm going to be a television comedy writer, especially if you don't have backing or resources from parents or stuff.
I'm going to survive.
You have to survive. Yeah. And, my mom was very independent. She was a doctor. And, I knew that I had to work harder than anybody else. And, work became, especially working on these shows, but actually all my jobs leading up to that, work became the centerpiece of my identity and my life's purpose. Like, my sense of identity was so bound up in my job and my sense of accomplishment and my feelings of productivity. It felt, if I felt like I was failing in something, it would send me into like a conniption of existential bunk that spilled over into every part of my life. And I finally had to go into therapy because of it. I had this like ergomania, which, I couldn't turn down projects. Yeah. And I took any unpaying, I would do anything that, like, Fox would ask me to produce things and I would just do them. Right. And like, work for me almost became like a religious identity, like you're promising like something's transcendence that always failed to deliver.
Yeah, no. And that's a, that has no gender. I think there are plenty of people who just are identified through their work or think that they are. Mm-hmm. And, that's just, that's something you just got to balance, as you go.
Yeah, I was completely unable to balance it. And I had to, get sober. I'm going on my 12th year sobriety.
Congratulations.
Thanks. And then go to therapy, because it was like the mismatch between my expectations and reality was just a recipe for severe disappointment, if not outright misery. Like, if I do this other project and the studio's going to be really happy, and then something's going to happen to make me feel good, and it's it's a narrative that stopped really working for me and was it was pushing me down the rabbit hole of inebriation.
Yeah. And once you start not dealing with what's really going on, you can't get anything done. So that's awesome that you got your eyes clear, and then and you can deal. And everyone's struggling. Everyone. Yes. The most successful people I know are struggling with lots of things, and I think that's something that everyone deals with, and that anyone who's thinking of making a career change or doing something, your problems aren't going to go away. You're just going to be you're going to be more fulfilled if you're doing what you really want to do. But
absolutely. But most people just don't have, that option, and but still somehow get up every day and do their job to make a difference. And
well, it's what can you do? It's what can you do today? And I've touched on this last night. I've been through real dark times, and it's what can I do today? What can I do today? And
Yeah.
that's you know, whatever. But as we've gotten real deep and philosophical, we're going to get cut off in about 5 minutes. People are always asking me, you know, I have I have a show, an animated idea. How do I get into animation? And, you know, usually if I have good friends of the family who I know or whatever, I'll send you an email, and
Yes,
you're always gracious to talk to people. But for people at large, if you're talking to a group, you know, I always say make your stuff, whether it's live action or animation or writing or whatever it is, just do it and get it in as many hands as you can, and you'll find your way. Any
Yeah,
great...
I agree with that. And I feel like in terms of there's two things. If you want to work in animation, there's one avenue. But if you have a project, then yes, the best thing to do is to go ahead and try to make it, because now you can do things cheaply. There are a lot of tools now where you can put together an animated short that's not going to cost you any money, unlike the old days. There are tons of programs, like animation programs, that you could do that. And the other thing is there's a hell of a lot more destinations for shows. Like, you know, when we started, there were 4 networks, and a lot of them had gatekeepers, and you had to have agents. Like, that's not the case anymore at all.
Yeah.
Like, there are no gatekeepers. Like, we've hired people based on their Twitter accounts.
Yeah.
You could send in, you know, packages of whatever you want. It's just not, the rules are not the same. And you can literally, like, if you have a project idea, you can pick up the phone and actually call studios now. You don't need an agent to do that anymore.
Right.
To call someone at Netflix or to call someone at Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm this producer. We're not a studio that develops, but there is a division at Fox that develops animated shows that you can just call.
And what is that called? Tell people.
It's just Fox Television Animation.
Yeah. Cool.
But, you know, it's funny. One of the things I'm working on now, I had been developing this animated show since I think the 2012 election cycle, when I was on Twitter and I was really politically active on social media. I'm not anymore. But the show is about like an ordinary American family a few years in the future as Western society collapsed, and they're living in like a charred hellscape of a post-global pandemic, an end stage, climate stage America. It's basically what's happening now. It was hilarious. The artwork, Brent Woods, was brilliant. It was a surefire hit. I pitched at the Fox tonight. No one literally called me back. Yeah. I know you had issues like that too, but it was almost like because I didn't fit the mold. So you know, if any other number of writers had walked in with it, would be like, oh my God, we're buying it on the spot. Yeah,
I mean, there's always a mandate, you know, on, you know, from the top where the buyers are, and we're going to get cut off in a minute and a half. But you know, it's my advice to people is just enjoy the process. I shot a pilot a couple years ago and it didn't sell. I wouldn't change anything about it. You know, like I loved doing it and I've learned so much. And, you know, I think that's the big lesson, is just keep making your stuff and keep enjoying it. And it's going to pop eventually.
Yeah, eventually. Yes, exactly. And, you know, Reagan is a really good example of that, you know, and she's made some really wonderful things. And, well,
Kara, is there any parting word? I do want to say before we get cut off, tomorrow night I'm loving that Al Franken will be joining me in this hour.
I love him.
We've become friends, and
so, and you brought him into my office, right?
What's that?
Didn't you bring him into my office? Somebody brought
him. I did. I brought him in, and he's my pal Al. But So I think you're awesome, Kara. You've always been a great supporter of me and very open to me and great communication and much love to you, honey.
You too. You're
Really.
the best. And I want to give you props also because you do great philanthropic work and you've always, I know we are East Coast elitists, you're right.
Right.
You've always donated to my causes and you're someone that, you know,
5,
prioritizes that as well as I do.
4, 3. It's going to cut us.